So today we're going to run through how to install an Auxbeam switch panel. I also have some Novsite off-road pod lights or ditch lights that I will be installing to show you guys. And then I also picked up some industrial Velcro. This is to attach some of the switches and stuff inside my vehicle or outside in the engine bay. I just thought it'd be better than throwing some screws and drilling into some plastic. So before I show you how to do it on the engine bay, I wanted to give you a little diagram because I personally can get a little intimidated, even with a simple concept. So I just broke it down for myself. I think it might help some of you. But the general, I guess, way to wire this, no matter which vehicle you're putting it on, really, it's the same every time. So just to start, you will be connecting the positive line to your positive terminal on your battery to the top side of the 60 amp breaker. Make sure it's above the 60. This way it will protect your system. And then also, while you're working on the system, it's probably best to trip this breaker just so there's no power moving to the rest of the system, just to be super safe. You can also disconnect your negative side of your battery as well. And we'll get to that once I show you my vehicle. After you tie the positive terminal into the top of the breaker, then you will tie the second positive wire, from the bottom of the breaker to the positive end of the Auxbeam control panel. Now that all our positives are taken care of, now we have to ground and do our negatives. So take the black cord. You're going to find your negative on your Auxbeam controller. You can wire it to the negative terminal on your battery. However, on the Nissan Frontiers like I have, there is a grounding lug actually right below the battery. It's going to look a little bit better when I hide this wire. So I'm actually going to go into this grounding terminal just below it. If you know where yours is in your vehicle, go ahead and do that, or just go into the negative side of your battery. Not a big deal. I just thought it would also be easier if I ever have to replace a battery that I'm not replacing both these terminals right here. I'm just replacing the positive one instead of both the negative and positive. Okay, next, now that we have our power source figured out, next is controlling the, I guess, I keep saying the control panel. I'm not sure which one's the control panel, whatever, but how to control this with these buttons in this control panel. So what you're going to do is use this 4-pin connector, throw it in here, and this is what you're going to be, I guess, routing to your dasher inside your vehicle. So this would go through your firewall, right, and then connect to this inside your vehicle on your dash, up by your visor, whatever you do. And then to give this power or to tell it when it needs to turn on, this is when you use the accessory wire that it comes with to either tap into a fuse inside your engine bay or inside your cabin, depending on what you want. I do recommend that you tie into a fuse that only has power when the car is on or the ignition's turned on, and it's off when the car's off too. You don't want to drain your batteries and accidentally tap into a fuse that has power all the time, or not when you need it. So make sure you're tapping into a correct fuse. I'll show you what fuse I'm tapping into on a Nissan Frontier. And then you do want to use one of the fuse tappers that comes in the box. There's either a shorter 2-pin or a longer 2-pin. The ones in the Nissan Frontier, I'm going to use this longer 2-pin. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take the accessory cable, throw it into the weather stripping connector or combiner. And then what you're going to do is piggyback off of that fuse, throw in another fuse right here, and plug it in, and then you should be good to go. So this is a rough example of what it should look like. Hopefully it breaks it down into, smaller bite-sized pieces for you. This definitely helped me out. But if you have any questions, leave them below, and I'd be happy to help. Okay, first thing we're going to do is fish your control wire into the switch panel inside the cabin. In order to get through that, we're going to go through that big circular rubber grommet right there that has some wires going through it, so be careful. We are going to push. I'm going to use a nail. You can use a punch or something to punch a hole right through it. It's not super thick. What it looks like on the inside is underneath the floor well. It's going to be these set of wires right here, right behind this insulation fiberglass. You're going to poke a hole right into that rubber part. Okay, so once you get that through, you can go ahead, tape your control wire to that fish tape, and then I'm gonna throw some Dawn on top of this just to lubricate it and get it through. So shout out to Canadian Cruisin' and Ghostly Rich. Appreciate you guys. Hi everyone. So the day of install, it actually rained quite a bit. So I just wrapped up the install really quick, didn't film too much of it, but it is finally installed. I'm gonna walk you through what I did. Once you poked a hole for this control cable out of that rubber grommet, you're just gonna run it through the top of here, and I just zip tied it. As you can see, it's this more of this pleated wire. I just zip tied it to the pre-existing cables that run right there. And then I do have some cords running to my ditch lights, so don't worry about those. If I don't point them out, they're most likely to my ditch lights. What this cord goes to is it goes into the 4-prong connector on your Auxbeam. Now, mind you, what I said previously, this is all, excuse me, 1 sec. This is all Velcroed. So I just put a piece of Velcro underneath the Auxbeam controller, or this panel, and then I put it on top of this fuse box as well. So just sitting there, it's really strong. I just use industrial. And then after that, what I did is I took the positive cable, threw it to the breaker. And again, just like the Auxbeam breaker box, I put a square piece of industrial Velcro underneath the breaker, and I sat it right here. I have seen some people just put the breaker on top of the battery. You can do whatever you want, whatever looks best in your car and whatever makes you feel more organized. So again, so it went from the positive of the Auxbeam breaker panel to the breaker, or the bottom side of the breaker. Remember, the 60 amp points towards the battery, I guess the top of the 60. And then from the positive end of the breaker to the positive side of the battery. Now, for the negative side terminal, I guess, of the Auxbeam breaker, what I did is I fished it down through all this stuff, and then right here you can see there's a grounding nut right there. I just connected it to the ground system, I guess, of this truck, and fed it through there. I need to come back and do some more wire management. Obviously, this isn't the prettiest job, but it got it working, and that's all I needed. Now, next up, in order to, I guess, give this power when the car is on, there's a 2-pin connector right here. This 2-pin connector with the red cord needs to go and piggyback off of a fuse off of your car. You could either run it inside your car into your fuse box in there, or run it into a fuse outside. I ran it into the fuse box just below this. So here's a diagram of the specific fuse box for my truck. Thought it'd be easier to show a diagram. I am just tapping into the reverse lamp, and what you'll do is the Auxbeam will come with a piggyback breaker insert. So what you do is you remove that 10 amp breaker, and then the piggyback will already have another fuse in it. So take out that 10 amp fuse, place the piggyback in to where that 10 amp fuse is, and then place that 10 amp fuse back inside the piggyback breaker, and then you should be good to go. So I decided to put the Auxbeam button switch down here next to my center console in front. I did just use one of the brackets that the Auxbeam came with, and it's just sitting there, and it's held on by the cord, so it actually doesn't move too much when you're driving. If I'm going off-roading and it bugs me too much, I'll throw some Velcro on the back of that. But it's nice because it's removable if I don't want it there. Honestly, there's still plenty of room right there if you want to stick some more things. But for the wiring, I just tucked the wire back here, and then I just tucked it, let's see, down here, over there, and then back behind all this plastic. There is a airbag under there if you have a Frontier, so just make sure it's away from that and not interfering with that. And then I just spooled all the wire and zip tied it to, there was a little hole back there. So for the wiring and placement, just kind of do whatever feels best. I know that there's other manufacturers that create mounts and stuff for specific vehicles, so do your research, but that's what I did for mine. It works just as well. And just to give you a tutorial, so I have the car in accessory mode. It is, turning on. The Auxbeam will not turn on. So only when you push the start button again, reminder that the engine is on. Now the whole system turns on just the way we want it. So that means we went into the correct fuse in the engine bay. And then you can set yours up. Each light will obviously have a corresponding button to it. So depending on which one you get, if it's a 6 switch or an 8 switch, depends on that. But it works really well. You can also change the color of this. I just have it matching kind of the orange theme in the car. But it works really well. It turns off when the car's off and turns on when the car's